My name is Beulah, and I am 52 years old. Right now, I am sitting on the deck of an overwater villa in the Maldives watching the most beautiful sunrise I have ever seen in my life. The crystal clear turquoise water stretches endlessly before me, and tropical birds are singing their morning songs. But my phone has been buzzing non-stop for the past hour. 90 missed calls from my daughter Amanda. 90. Can you imagine that? While she is probably sitting at her fancy Christmas dinner right now realizing what a terrible mistake she made. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how I ended up choosing paradise over family drama this Christmas. Let me tell you a little bit about myself first so you understand how I got to this point. 3 years ago, I lost my husband Harold to cancer. We had been married for 26 years, and his death left me completely shattered. Harold was not just my husband, he was my best friend, my anchor, my everything. For months after he passed, I could barely function. I would sit in our empty house surrounded by memories, wondering how I was supposed to go on without him. I had been a second-grade teacher for 28 years at Maple Elementary School. Those little faces kept me going during the darkest time of my life. But this past June, I finally retired. The school district offered me an early retirement package, and honestly, I was ready. I was tired of dealing with difficult parents and endless paperwork. I thought retirement would give me time to heal, to figure out what the rest of my life was supposed to look like. My daughter Amanda is 29 years old, and she used to be my whole world after Harold died. We talked every day, sometimes for hours. She would come over for dinner twice a week, and we would watch old movies together, the same ones we watched when she was a little girl. Amanda has always been independent and strong-willed traits I admired in her. She graduated from college with a degree in marketing and landed a great job at an advertising firm downtown. 2 years ago, Amanda married Jason. He is 32 years old, a successful corporate lawyer at one of those big downtown firms. On paper, Jason looks perfect. He is handsome, wealthy, well-educated, and comes from an established family. His parents live in one of those massive houses in the suburbs, the kind with circular driveways and perfectly manicured lawns. But from the very beginning, something about Jason rubbed me the wrong way. The changes in Amanda started slowly, so gradually that I almost did not notice at first. Our daily phone calls became every other day, then twice a week, then once a week. When she did call, the conversations felt rushed, like she was checking something off her to-do list. Her visits became shorter too. She would come over for dinner but leave right after we finished eating, claiming Jason was expecting her home. Amanda and Jason have 2 beautiful children, my precious grandchildren. Sophie is 6 years old with curly blonde hair and the sweetest giggle you have ever heard. Lucas is 4, and he looks exactly like Amanda did at that age, with big brown eyes and a mischievous smile. Those kids are the light of my life, especially after losing Harold. Being their grandmother gives me purpose, makes me feel needed again. But even my relationship with Sophie and Lucas started to change after Amanda married Jason. Before the marriage, they would spend weekends at my house. We had special traditions like making chocolate chip pancakes on Saturday mornings and building blanket forts in the living room. I would read them stories and we would play board games for hours. Those weekends were the highlight of my existence. After Jason came into the picture, the overnight visits stopped. Amanda would bring the kids over for a few hours on Sunday afternoons, but Jason would always find a reason to pick them up early. He would call and say they had dinner plans with his family, or that he had planned some special activity. The kids would be disappointed, asking why they could not stay longer with Grandma Beulah, but Amanda would just apologize and promise we would have more time next weekend. Next weekend never seemed to come. last Christmas was the first year our family tradition changed. For as long as I could remember, Christmas had always been at my house. Harold and I would spend weeks preparing, decorating every room, cooking for days. Amanda would arrive Christmas Eve with whatever boyfriend she had at the time, and we would stay up late wrapping presents and drinking hot chocolate. Christmas morning was magical, with the whole house smelling like cinnamon rolls and coffee, but last year Amanda announced that they would be hosting Christmas at her and Jason's house instead. She said it made more sense since they had more space and Jason's parents would be joining us. I was hurt, but I understood. She was married now, starting her own traditions. I brought my famous green bean casserole and homemade dinner rolls gifts I had spent months selecting for everyone. That Christmas dinner was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. Jason's parents, Richard and Margaret, dominated every conversation. They talked about their recent trip to Europe, their country club activities, their son's latest legal victories. When I tried to share a funny story about Sophie and Lucas, Margaret would interrupt with some comment about their grandchildren from Jason's sister. I felt invisible, like I was just some random guest instead of the children's grandmother. The worst part was watching Amanda. She seemed stressed and anxious the entire day, constantly checking with Jason before speaking, making sure everything met his standards. This was not the confident, independent woman I had raised. She had become a shadow of herself, and it broke my heart. In early November, I called Amanda to ask about Christmas plans. I was hoping maybe we could go back to our old tradition, or at least that I would have a clear invitation to whatever they were planning. But Amanda was evasive, telling me they were still figuring things out. When I offered to host again like we used to, she quickly shut down the idea. Jason's parents really want us to do Christmas at their house this year, she said. Margaret has been planning this elaborate dinner for months. You understand, right, Mom? I did not understand, but I said I did. I asked if that meant I would be joining them at the Peterson house, but Amanda's response was vague. We will figure something out, Mom. Do not worry about it. But I was worrying about it. December arrived, and I still had not received a definitive invitation anywhere. I had already bought presents for Sophie and Lucas, wrapped them in bright red paper with golden bows the way I always did. They were sitting under my small Christmas tree waiting for grandchildren who might not even be coming to visit. Finally, on December 8th, Amanda called. I could tell immediately from her voice that this was not going to be good news. She sounded nervous, like she was reading from a script. Mom, about Christmas, she began, and my heart started pounding. Jason's parents booked this really nice dinner reservation at the country club. It is supposed to be this exclusive Christmas dinner, very fancy. I waited for her to continue, hoping she was leading up to inviting me to join them. The thing is, Amanda continued, her voice getting smaller, the table only seats 8 people. And with Jason's parents and his sister Jennifer and her husband, plus their 2 kids, and then the 4 of us. There is just no space for you this year. The words hit me like a physical blow. No space for me? No space for the woman who had given birth to her, raised her, supported her through everything. No space for the grandmother of those children. I sat in stunned silence, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Mom, are you there? Amanda's voice sounded far away. I am here, I managed to whisper. I know this is disappointing, but maybe we can do something together the day after Christmas, or New Year's Eve. We could have our own little celebration, just the 3 of us. 3 of us. Not even including the grandchildren in her consolation prize offer. I tried to suggest alternatives, my voice shaking. What about Christmas Eve? Could I see you and the kids on Christmas Eve? We are doing Christmas Eve at Jennifer's house. It is just going to be immediate family. Immediate family. Those words cut deeper than anything else she could have said. After 52 years of life, 29 years of being her mother, I was no longer considered immediate family. "What about Christmas morning?" I asked desperately. "Just for an hour to watch the kids open their presents from me." "Christmas morning is really just going to be for our household mom. Jason thinks it is important for the kids to have that intimate family time without distractions." Distractions. That is what I had become. A distraction from her real family. Amanda tried to soften the blow with promises of getting together after the holidays, but I barely heard her. After we hung up, I sat in my living room looking at the Christmas decorations I had already put up. The tree with its twinkling lights, the garland draped over the fireplace mantel, the stockings hanging where Harold's and Amanda's and mine used to hang together. I thought about all the Christmases past when Amanda was little and would wake me up at 5 in the morning because she was too excited to wait any longer. I remembered teaching her how to make sugar cookies, letting her lick the mixing bowl clean. I thought about Harold, how he would dress up as Santa when Amanda still believed how we would stay up until midnight on Christmas Eve, assembling whatever complicated toy she had asked for. Now, I was going to spend Christmas alone in this house full of memories while my daughter celebrated with people who considered me an inconvenience. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying the conversation with Amanda, hearing those awful words over and over again. "No space for you." But somewhere around 3 in the morning, lying in my empty bed, something shifted inside me. The hurt began transforming into something else. Anger. Determination. A resolve I had not felt since Harold died. I was not going to spend Christmas feeling sorry for myself. I was not going to sit in this house surrounded by decorations waiting for a phone call that might never come. If my own daughter could exclude me from her life, then I was going to build a life that did not revolve around waiting for her approval. I remembered a conversation I had with my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, a few months ago. She had just returned from a solo cruise to Alaska and could not stop talking about how liberating it was to travel on her own. "Beulah," she had said, "you have got to stop waiting for other people to make your life happen. Harold would want you to live, not just survive." At the time, I had dismissed her advice. It seemed selfish to spend money on myself when I could be saving it for the grandchildren's college funds or for emergencies. But now, sitting in the darkness of my bedroom, Mrs. Patterson's words echoed in my mind. If they did not want me, then I would give myself the Christmas I deserved. The next morning, I sat down at my computer with a cup of coffee and started researching luxury Christmas destinations. I had never taken a real vacation by myself, never even considered it. Harold and I used to take modest trips camping in state parks or visiting his sister in Florida. But this was going to be different. This was going to be spectacular. I scrolled through websites showing images of tropical beaches, luxury resorts, and crystal clear waters. The Maldives kept appearing in my search results. Photos of overwater villas that looked like something from a dream with glass floors, where you could watch tropical fish swimming beneath your feet. Private beaches with sand so white it looked like powdered sugar. Sunset dinners on the beach with servers waiting on you hand and foot. The prices made me gasp at first. $8,000 for 5 days at the Sunset Paradise Resort and Spa. That was more money than Harold and I used to spend on vacation in 5 years. But then I thought about Harold's life insurance money sitting in my savings account barely touched for 3 years. I had been so afraid to spend it treating it like some sacred fund that I could never touch. But Harold would be furious if he knew I was letting our daughter treat me like garbage while his hard-earned money sat collecting dust in the bank. He always told me I was too generous, too willing to put everyone else's needs before my own. "Beulah," he used to say, "you have got to learn to be a little selfish sometimes. You matter too." I picked up the phone and called the resort before I could change my mind. "Sunset Paradise Resort and Spa. This is Marcus. How may I help you today?" "I would like to book an overwater villa for Christmas," I heard myself saying. "December 23rd through 27th. "Wonderful. Let me check our availability. Yes, we do have our presidential overwater villa available for those dates. It includes a private infinity pool, personal butler service, and daily spa treatments. The rate for those 5 days would be $8,200. $8,200. More than I used to make in 3 months as a teacher." "I will take it," I said. After I booked the trip, I felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. I had never done anything this impulsive, this expensive, this completely focused on my own happiness. But it felt good. For the first time since Harold died, I felt like I was taking control of my life instead of just letting it happen to me. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I went shopping for resort wear, something I had never owned in my life. I bought flowing sundresses in bright colors, sandals with actual heels, a swimsuit that made me feel feminine and confident. I got my hair done at a salon instead of cutting it myself in the bathroom mirror. I even bought expensive makeup, and watched YouTube videos to learn how to apply it properly. When Amanda called to check in the following week, I mentioned casually that I would not be available on Christmas Day because I was traveling. "Oh, that is nice, Mom. Where are you going?" she asked, sounding distracted. "Somewhere I am wanted," I replied. She laughed, thinking I was being dramatic. "Come on, Mom, where are you really going?" "You will find out," I said mysteriously. I started posting hints on my Facebook page, photos of my new clothes with captions like, "Getting ready for my Christmas adventure." Pictures of travel books and resort brochures scattered across my coffee table. My friends started commenting, asking where I was going, saying they were so excited for me. Some mentioned how they wished they had the courage to take a solo trip. Amanda's college friends, who were connected to me on social media, started asking her where her mom was going for Christmas. I could tell she was getting curious, maybe even a little concerned, but I was not ready to reveal my plans yet. Let her wonder. Let her realize that her mother was not going to sit around waiting for scraps of attention. December 23rd arrived faster than I expected. I had barely slept the night before, partially from excitement and partially from nerves. I had never traveled internationally by myself, never been on a plane alone for longer than 2 hours. But I was determined to do this to prove to myself that I could be independent and adventurous. I dressed carefully that morning in one of my new outfits, a flowing navy blue dress that made me feel elegant and confident. I had packed everything in a brand new suitcase, another purchase that felt both frivolous and necessary. At the airport, I checked in for my first-class seat, another spontaneous upgrade I had booked the week before. "First time flying first class?" the cheerful airline employee asked as she handed me my boarding pass. "First time doing a lot of things," I replied with a smile. The flight from Chicago to Dubai was 13 hours, but in first class it felt like a luxury retreat rather than an endurance test. The seat reclined into a completely flat bed, the food was restaurant quality, and the flight attendants treated me like royalty. I found myself sitting next to a fascinating woman named Dr. Patricia Williams, a retired cardiologist who was also traveling solo to the Maldives. "I do this every Christmas," Patricia told me over our gourmet dinner. "After my husband passed 5 years ago, I decided I was not going to spend another holiday feeling sorry for myself. Now I pick a different destination every year and treat myself like the queen I am." We talked for hours about independence, about learning to value ourselves, about the importance of not letting other people define our worth. Patricia shared stories about her own family struggles, how her adult children had initially been shocked by her newfound independence, but eventually came to respect her for it. "The thing about family," Patricia said as we watched the clouds drift by outside our window, "is that they will treat you exactly how you allow them to treat you. If you accept being treated poorly, they will continue treating you poorly. But if you show them that you have options, that you do not need their approval to be happy, suddenly you become much more valuable to them." Her words resonated deeply with me. For 3 years since Harold died, I had been so desperate to maintain my connection with Amanda that I had accepted less and less from her. I had made myself small, undemanding, grateful for whatever attention she was willing to give me. But that version of myself was not serving anyone, least of all me. When we landed in the Maldives, I felt like I was entering a different world. The airport was open air with tropical flowers everywhere and the sound of ocean waves in the distance. The seaplane that took me to the resort was an adventure in itself, flying low over water so blue it looked artificial with tiny islands dotting the ocean like emeralds scattered across silk. The Sunset Paradise Resort was even more beautiful than the photos on their website. My overwater villa was connected to the main resort by a wooden walkway that stretched out over the lagoon. When I opened the door to my villa, I actually gasped out loud. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided a panoramic view of the ocean. The bathroom had a glass floor where I could watch tropical fish swimming below. The bedroom had a king-sized bed draped in white mosquito netting that made me feel like a princess. My personal butler Kumar introduced himself and gave me a tour of all the villa's amenities. There was a private infinity pool on the deck, outdoor shower, and a dining area where I could have all my meals served privately if I preferred. Kumar explained the resort's Christmas Eve and Christmas Day activities, asked about any dietary restrictions, and assured me that his job was to make sure I had the most relaxing and enjoyable stay possible. That first evening, I had dinner at the resort's main restaurant, a romantic overwater pavilion lit by hundreds of candles. The meal was the finest I had ever had in my life. Fresh seafood caught that morning, exotic fruits. I had never tasted wine that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. As I sat there watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace I had not experienced since Harold died. Before bed, I took my first photo in the Maldives, a selfie of me on my villa deck, with the ocean stretching endlessly behind me. I posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Christmas Eve in Paradise." Within minutes, comments started pouring in from friends back home expressing amazement and envy. Several people tagged Amanda in the comments, asking if she knew her mother was in the Maldives. I turned off my phone after that and went to bed listening to the gentle sound of waves lapping against the pillars supporting my villa. For the first time in months, I fell asleep feeling genuinely happy. Christmas morning in the Maldives was like something from a fairy tale. I woke up naturally around 7, no alarm clock needed, to the sound of tropical birds singing outside my window. The sun was just rising over the ocean, painting the water in shades of gold and turquoise that seemed too beautiful to be real. Kumar arrived with breakfast at 8, wheeling in a cart laden with fresh tropical fruit, warm pastries, perfectly prepared eggs, Benedict, and a bottle of champagne for mimosas. We set everything up on my private deck, and I ate breakfast in my silk pajamas while watching dolphins play in the distance. "Happy Christmas, Mrs. Beulah," Kumar said with a warm smile as he poured my mimosa. "Today we have arranged a special dolphin-watching excursion for you, followed by a couples massage, though of course it will be adapted for a single guest. This evening is our Christmas gala dinner on the beach." Everything felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. The old Beulah would never have spent Christmas morning drinking champagne in an overwater villa in the Maldives. The old Beulah would have been at home waiting by the phone, hoping for a call from Amanda that might never come. Around 10 in the morning, Maldives time, which was Christmas Eve evening back in Chicago, my phone started buzzing. I had turned it back on to take photos and immediately noticed several missed calls and text messages. The first text was from Amanda. "Mom, where exactly are you?" I smiled and took a photo of my villa deck with the crystal clear water and my breakfast spread visible in the frame. I sent it to Amanda with the caption, "Merry Christmas from the Maldives." My phone rang immediately. "The Maldives." Amanda's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Are you serious right now, Mom? Do you know how much that costs?" "I have a rough idea," I replied calmly, taking a sip of my mimosa. "We could have worked something out. You did not have to go halfway around the world because of one dinner. You made it clear there was no room for me," I said, my voice steady. "So I found somewhere where I am wanted." "That is not fair, Mom. You know the situation was complicated." "Yes, it was complicated, but not anymore. Now it is very simple. I am having a wonderful Christmas in paradise, and you are dealing with the consequences of your choices." Amanda tried to argue, but I told her I had to go because my dolphin watching tour was starting. I could hear the panic in her voice as she realized I was serious about being in the Maldives, serious about not being available for her last-minute guilt and explanations. The dolphin watching tour was magical. We took a small boat out into deeper water, and within 20 minutes we were surrounded by pods of dolphins jumping and playing in the waves. I took dozens of photos and videos, not just for social media, but because I wanted to remember every detail of this perfect day. When we returned to the resort around noon, my phone showed 15 missed calls, all from Amanda with a few from Jason mixed in. There were also several text messages from numbers I did not recognize, which I assumed were from Jason's parents. I turned the phone back off and headed to the spa for my Christmas massage. The spa treatment was unlike anything I had ever experienced. They had set up a special Christmas package just for me with aromatherapy oils that smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. The massage therapist worked out tension I did not even know I was carrying, 3 years' worth of grief and stress and disappointment melting away under her skilled hands. After the spa, I spent the afternoon lounging by my private pool reading a novel I had brought but never had time to open. Every few pages, I would look up at the view and remind myself that this was real, that I was really here, that I had really made this bold decision to put myself first. Around 5 in the evening, I turned my phone back on to take sunset photos. The missed calls had climbed to 47. The voicemails told a story of escalating panic and realization. The first few messages were angry, accusing me of being dramatic and selfish. But as the day progressed, Amanda's tone changed from anger to confusion to genuine distress. The most recent voicemail was from Jason. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Jason. Amanda is very upset, and the kids are asking where Grandma Beulah is. Could you please call us back so we can figure out how to resolve this situation?" Resolve this situation, as if my feelings were just a problem to be managed, rather than a valid response to being excluded from my own family. I got dressed for dinner in my most elegant outfit, a flowing emerald green dress that made me feel like a movie star. The Christmas gala was set up on the beach with tables arranged on the sand under strings of twinkling lights. A small orchestra played Christmas carols with a tropical twist, and the menu was a fusion of traditional holiday flavors with local Maldivian ingredients. I was seated at a table with other solo travelers and couples, all of whom were fascinating people with interesting stories. There was a recently divorced woman celebrating her first Christmas as a single person, a retired couple from Australia who had been coming to the Maldives for 10 years, and a young man who was taking a break from his demanding job in tech. As we ate our Christmas dinner under the stars with gentle waves washing up on the shore just a few feet away, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not just for this incredible experience, but for the strength I had found to choose myself to refuse to accept being treated poorly by people who were supposed to love me. By the time dessert was served, my phone showed 90 missed calls. The next morning, December 26th, I finally decided it was time to face the music. I had slept better than I had in years, despite knowing there was probably a family crisis happening back in Chicago. Or maybe because of it. For the first time in 3 years, the crisis was not mine to manage. I had my morning coffee on the deck watching the sunrise and mentally preparing for the conversation I was about to have. When I finally called Amanda back, she answered before the first ring finished. "Mom. Oh my God, where have you been? We have been worried sick about you." "I have been having the best Christmas of my life," I replied honestly. "Do you have any idea what yesterday was like for me? Jason's family kept asking where you were, and I had to admit I did not know." Margaret made all these snide comments about how I clearly do not have a good relationship with my mother. "The kids were asking for you all day. Sophie cried because Grandma Beulah was not there to read her the Christmas story like always." I felt a stab of pain hearing about Sophie crying, but I pushed it aside. This was bigger than one Christmas, bigger than one hurt feeling. This was about establishing my worth and demanding the respect I deserved. "Amanda, I need you to understand something," I said. "I will not be anyone's backup plan anymore. I will not accept crumbs from my own daughter. For 3 years since your father died, I have made myself smaller and smaller, asking for less and less, just hoping to maintain some connection with you and the grandchildren. But that stops now." "Mom, you are being dramatic. It was just one dinner." "No, sweetheart, it was not just one dinner. It was the culmination of 2 years of being gradually pushed out of your life. It was being told I am not immediate family. It was watching you change into someone I barely recognize because you are so afraid of disappointing your husband and his parents." There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could tell Amanda was crying. "I did not want to exclude you," she finally whispered. "Jason said it would be easier this way, that you would understand. His parents think you are too emotional, that you make everything about yourself. They said older people are supposed to understand when family dynamics change." "And what do you think, Amanda? Do you think your mother is too emotional? Do you think I make everything about myself?" More crying. "I do not know what I think anymore, Mom. Everything is so complicated with Jason's family. They have all these expectations and rules about how things should be done. I feel like I am constantly walking on eggshells." "Then maybe the problem is not with me," I said gently. "Maybe the problem is that you have allowed other people to dictate how you treat your own mother." Jason got on the phone, then clearly having been listening to our conversation. "Mrs. Johnson, I think there has been a misunderstanding here. We can work this out. This does not have to be such a big deal." "Mr. Peterson," I replied, my voice firm. "The only misunderstanding was thinking I would accept being treated as an inconvenience by my own family. The only big deal is that you convinced my daughter to exclude her mother from Christmas, and now you are trying to minimize the impact of that decision." "We can fix this," Jason said, his lawyer training kicking in. "Next year, we will make sure to include you in our plans from the beginning." "That is not good enough," I replied. "I need an apology, a real one, acknowledging that what you did was hurtful and wrong. and I need a guarantee that this kind of exclusion will never happen again. Not just for Christmas, but for any family gathering." I could hear Jason and Amanda whispering to each other, clearly discussing how to handle this unexpected turn of events. They had expected me to be grateful for any attention they were willing to give me after the holidays. They had not expected me to be calling the shots from an overwater villa in the Indian Ocean. Sophie got on the phone, then her little voice breaking my heart. "Grandma Beulah, where are you? Daddy said you were on a trip, but I wanted you to be here for Christmas. Did I do something wrong?" "Oh, sweetheart," I said, fighting back tears. "You did absolutely nothing wrong. Grandma had to go on a special trip, but I missed you terribly. I have presents for you and Lucas, and we are going to have our own special Christmas celebration when I get back." "Promise?" Sophie asked. "I promise, baby girl, but it is going to be at my house on my terms when it works for me." I could hear Amanda in the background realizing that I was serious about establishing new boundaries. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes with Jason trying to negotiate and Amanda crying and apologizing. By the end, we had established some basic agreements, a formal apology from Jason, a commitment to including me in all major family gatherings, and scheduled weekly visits with the grandchildren that could not be canceled for Jason's family activities. My remaining 2 days in the Maldives were spent in reflection and planning for my new life. I had morning yoga sessions on the beach afternoon, snorkeling trips to see coral reefs that looked like underwater gardens, and evening meditation sessions watching the sunset from my deck. On my final morning, Kumar brought me breakfast one last time, and we talked about the transformation he had witnessed in me over the past 5 days. "Mrs. Beulah," he said with his gentle smile. "When you arrived, you seemed like a woman carrying heavy burdens. Now you look free, like you have remembered who you are." His observation was more accurate than he knew. Somewhere between the dolphin watching and the Christmas gala dinner and the confrontation with Amanda, I had indeed remembered who I was. I was not just Amanda's mother, or Harold's widow, or Sophie and Lucas's grandmother. I was Beulah Johnson, a woman with her own dreams, her own worth, her own right to happiness. The flight home gave me time to process everything that had happened and plan for the future. I was not going to return to my old life of sitting around waiting for other people to include me in theirs. I was going to build a life so full and rich that I would be the one other people wanted to be included with. When I landed in Chicago, Amanda was waiting for me at the airport. She looked terrible, like she had not slept in days, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me walking towards her, tanned and confident and clearly transformed, she started crying again. "Mom, I am so sorry," she said, hugging me tightly. "I have been such an idiot. Jason and I have been talking, and we both realize how badly we handled this whole situation." We talked for hours that night at my house, really talked in a way we had not done since before her marriage. Amanda admitted that she had been struggling in her marriage, that Jason's controlling behavior had extended far beyond just our family relationship. She felt like she had lost herself constantly trying to meet the expectations of his family while neglecting her relationships with the people who had always loved her unconditionally. "I used to be so independent," Amanda said. "Remember how you always told me I was too stubborn, too unwilling to compromise? Somehow I went from that to being a woman who needs permission from her husband to invite her own mother to Christmas dinner." The apology from Jason came the next day, awkward and clearly reluctant, but it was a start. More importantly, Amanda had begun standing up to him and his family, insisting on new boundaries that respected her relationship with me. Over the following months, our mother-daughter relationship was rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect rather than my desperate need for inclusion. Amanda started coming to dinner again, but this time because she wanted to, not out of obligation. The grandchildren resumed their overnight visits, and I established new traditions that belonged just to us. I also began building the independent life I had discovered I was capable of having. I joined a senior travel group and started planning regular adventures, both domestic and international. I took cooking classes and started a book club that met at my house every week. Most surprisingly, I began dating again, something I had never imagined doing after Harold. I met Robert at one of the travel group meetings. He was a retired history professor, recently widowed like me, with a gentle sense of humor and a passion for learning new things. Our first date was coffee and a walk through the botanical gardens. Our second date was dinner and a concert. 6 months later, he accompanied me on my second annual solo Christmas trip, this time to New Zealand. The relationship with my grandchildren became stronger than ever because it was no longer fraught with the tension of family politics. Sophie and Lucas knew that time with Grandma Beulah was special, protected, non-negotiable. I taught them about independence and self-worth, not through lectures, but through example. Amanda's marriage improved too once she remembered how to stand up for herself and her priorities. She and Jason started couples counseling, and while it was not always easy, they began building a partnership based on mutual respect rather than his control and her compliance. The following Christmas, Amanda's family came to my house just like old times, but with a completely different dynamic. Jason participated respectfully, and his parents either behaved themselves or were not invited. I was no longer the desperate grandmother grateful for any attention, but the respected matriarch whose approval they sought. As I sat in my living room that next Christmas morning watching Sophie and Lucas open presents under the tree while Amanda helped in the kitchen and Robert read his newspaper by the fireplace, I thought about how different everything was from just 1 year earlier. The same decorations, the same traditions, but completely transformed by my willingness to value myself enough to demand better treatment. The phone rang and Amanda answered it cheerfully, confident, and relaxed in a way I had not seen in years. "Hi, Mom," she said, walking over to hand me the phone. "It is Mrs. Patterson from next door. She wants to know if you have any more tips for solo travel planning." I took the phone with a smile, thinking about how my neighbor's advice had started this entire journey. As we talked about travel destinations and the courage it takes to put yourself first, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was confident, happy, and completely at peace with her choices. The lesson I learned in the Maldives was simple but profound. You have to teach people how to treat you, and that education starts with how you treat yourself. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is showing them they cannot take you for granted. When you stop accepting less than you deserve, you discover that you were always worthy of so much more. Sometimes you have to go halfway around the world to remember who you are, but once you remember, you can create the life you deserve right where you are. My Christmas in the Maldives was not just a vacation, it was a declaration of independence, a reclamation of my own worth, and the beginning of the rest of my life. Have you ever had to make a tough decision to stand up for yourself, even when it meant disappointing people you love? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story inspired you to think about your own boundaries and self-worth, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your strength and choosing yourself. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope your own path leads you to the respect and happiness you deserve. May you always remember that you are worth fighting for, especially by yourself.